Hello, boys. Welcome back to our teaching videos of economics. Now, first of all, I hope you had a very good holiday just now, and it's going to have an even better holiday in the remaining days, right? So, to everyone, 新年快樂，身體健康啦. Okay, hope you guys have a very healthy, very happy holiday, right? Now, so what we're going to do for this series of videos, like I mentioned before the holiday, right? I'm going to shoot at least the videos on chapter 15 and chapter 16 of our economics syllabus, right? Now, depending on the time, right? Let's see whether we have time to, let's see whether I have enough time to also go on for a brief introduction of chapter 17 and chapter 18, right? But no promise. I really need to see whether I have enough time for that because I also have some IH works to do and other works to do, right? All right, now without further ado, let's get started. Now remember, boys, I know we have talked about GDP before the holiday, but I'm going to treat as if we have not learned anything to be a detailed teaching of chapter 15 and chapter 16. Now the structure, it's going to be like this. First, I'm going for each part, I'm going to do the teaching on textbook, and then I'm going to do another video on the past paper questions, right? So if you feel like you don't need to listen to the explanation again, but you want to do the revision on the past paper, feel free to do so. Okay, 好嘛？太多廢話啦，好嘛？ Now let's really get started. Now this is the video one for the definition of GDP. OK， 嗱你唔好以為好簡單啊。This part is a very important yet very difficult part. OK， 好嘛？好啦，嗱乜嘢係 GDP 咧？It measures one thing. Something we call national income. And when it comes to national income, we have two. We have both GDP and GNI. Now, don't worry too much. Let's start with GDP first. Here, let's go to page 2 of your textbook. You see the definition here. The definition of GDP is this, right? You see, I've already marked quite a lot of things here. So be very careful. GDP refers to the total market value. 你見有第一個一字啦，係咪？ This is the first thing we need to know, right? Of the production. Second thing, right, of all RPUs, resident producing units, okay, of an economy over a period of time, usually, okay, usually a year. 正常嚟講咧，通常一年嘅。OK， 好嘛？ Now you see I have 4 markings here. Okay, so let's look at each of them in detail. Okay, now first of all, we need to have value， 係咪啊？我哋計啲有 value 嘅嘢。So if something happens to be of $0, unfortunately, they would not be in GDP. Okay, Mr. Chen, can you give me some example? Yes, for example, volunteer work. OK， 係嘛？你話喂去做義工啦，係咪？之前我見 Adam 啦，係咪 ？Adam is a very kind-hearted student, right? He do a lot of volunteer work, right? Work definitely a production， 係嘛？我見佢整嗰啲穿嗰啲花啊，去做服務啊 ，definitely involves input and turn input into output, right? Definitely production. But unfortunately, since those are volunteer work, right, that would not be counted in GDP because the market value for volunteer work is 0 by definition, right? 係咪啊？做義工就係唔收錢啊嘛，係咪？ So by definition 0. Okay, another example, housework. 嗱呢個上堂都講過好多次笑話啦，係咪啊？ You can tell your mom, right? Why you're not doing housework? Because housework does not involve any market value. 我喺屋企打掃係有 production 嘅 ，there is production, but there is no market value, right? 係嘛？所以你同我媽講，我係I'm being efficient. I do not want to waste effort on things that do not count towards GDP. Now, don't tell your mom I teach you that, okay? 我死硬嘅嚇 ，OK 好嘛？ So here, remember, first you need to have value, OK 好嘛？第二個 point 啦 ，second point, it needs to be of production. production。OK， 嗱 production 啲乜嘢咧 ？There are 2 points we need to be aware of. OK，Number one, it needs to be of real production。你阿 Sir， 咩叫 real production 嚟啊 ？unreal 嘅 ？No。The counterpart of real production is something we call financial production， financial investment。OK， 好嘛 ？financial investment， 你阿 Sir 即係咩意思啊 ？Which means unfortunately the price of stock and bonds, no matter how much you spend, will not be counted in GDP. Why? 我哋諗下啦，其實股票係咩嚟㗎 ？Basically, it is something we call a right， 係咪？有個權利 ，you can buy a right to become a boss。頂 bonds 咩叫 bonds 啊？只不過係 I buy something，OK，I buy a right so that you owe me money， 係咪啊？我買咗個權，咩權啊？你爭我錢嘅一個權利。OK，is a right. There is no production involved, right？ 係咪？其實冇嘅，純粹係買個 promise. Basically, is buying a promise. So there is no production, no input into output. OK， 好嘛 ？So this is point number one. Point number two, production not just of any real production. OK， it should be of final product. OK， 嗱 Sir， 咩叫 final product 啊 ？It means that intermediate goods 係咪啊 ？Intermediate goods should not be counted, or I should put it this way. OK, later on when we talk about expenditure approach and value added approach, you will understand. 原來啦 intermediate product also count, but after they are counted for the first time, the second time they should be deducted away from the final product. Now, don't worry too much. More on that later. 嗱，所以而家呢個位因為我自己講真 I do not like the way they put it, right? Final product, intermediate product. I think this is a very confusing way to put it, right? You will understand more once we go to both a value-added approach, or sometimes you call a production approach, and when we go to expenditure approach, you will understand more. OK， 好嘛？嗱，所以暫時你記住啦 ，if we count the intermediate and the final product, we will have the problem of double counting. Again, more on that later. OK， 好嘛？所以嗱，呢個係第二個 point 啦。OK，the second point. Now the third point, it must be by something we call resident producing unit. 嗱，你見啦，本書係咁寫嘅 ，of an economic territory, right? But let's be more specific. By RPU， 一定要係一啲叫 resident producing unit. So here, let's go back to page 2. OK， 我哋翻第二版咧，阿 Sir， 乜嘢叫做 RPU 啊 ？OK，here we come. OK， 嗱，乜嘢 RPU 咧？嗱，我唔知點解放咗呢度啊。It shouldn't be here. Instead, it should be in the main content. Okay, now because this is very important. 記住啦 according to the definition of RPU, you have to fulfill either of the requirement. First, you have engaged. Okay， 你有 engage 到 or you intend to engage in production activity in that economy for 1 year at least. Okay, over a year. 阿 Sir， 即係咩意思啊 ？Example number one. Okay, let's say example number one. Example number one. Leo Chan. Okay, Leo Chan stayed in Hong Kong for 32 years. Okay， 嗱，阿 Sir 32歲啦 ，so here I've been staying in Hong Kong for 32 years and I've been working as a teacher for 5 years. So I've been in production activity for at least 5 years here, right? So he is, okay, Liu Chen is an RPU of Hong Kong. 第二個例子啦 ，let's say now Liu Chen hire a foreign domestic helper， 啲賓賓啊。OK 嗱，如果有錢嘅話 ，let's assume I have money, right? And then I hire a foreign domestic helper. OK, and let's say, OK, right now is January. OK, let's say I hire that foreign domestic helper last year in September. OK, in September. OK， 咁你計下啦 ，September, right? October, November, December. OK, only 3 months. 你見啦，得3個月啦。But if I hire that foreign domestic helper with a 2-year contract， 係一個2年嘅合約 ，things would be different because even though only 3 months in Hong Kong， 我哋暫時見好似淨係做咗3個月啫，係咪啊 ？But there is an intention， 咩叫 intention？ 我簽咗 contract 咯，2年嘅 contract 即係咩意思啊 ？You will be working in Hong Kong for continuous 2 years. There is an intention. In this case, even though only 3 months of work, this is also an RPU because we see an intention to work for more than 1 year. OK， 原來啦 GDP only counts the value of production by RPU. OK， 即係咩意思啊 ？What does that mean? Let's say if an American, OK, work in Hong Kong for 2 months and then leave。OK， 嚟香港做咗2個月，跟住走咗啦。He or she will not be an RPU because has not stayed for a year or has no intention to stay for 1 year。OK， 得唔得啊？好，最後一個 point 啦。Final point here in a given period. Remember, it needs to be in that particular year。OK， 一定要係嗰一年先計嘅。OK， 好嘛？嗱 ，of course there are some exceptions to these rules, but do not worry, right? We will talk about those exceptions in past paper。OK， 嗱 ，but just to make our life simpler，OK， 我哋而家寫低咗嗰兩個有2個特別嘅 case 先。OK， 有2個 case 都計 GDP 嘅。OK，case number 1。Let's say an infrastructure project， 原來起樓啊 ，most of the time， OK， most of the time we infrastructure project cannot be finished within 1 year， 係咪？通常1年做唔晒噶嘛？你阿 Sir， 咁點計 GDP 啊 ？OK，remember only counts the value added of the year， 淨係計嗰1年嘅 value added 啫，好唔好啊？嗱 ，more on that later when we go to production approach。OK， 好嘛？好啦，第2個例子啦 ，a second case。A second case. Now this one is a little bit perplexing. You just need to memorize that. 原來啦 ，the estimated rental value of self-use flats also counts in GDP。原來咧，我自住嘅樓咧都計 GDP 嘅喎。How it works is that it is assuming you as the owner is renting to yourself。逢親你見到 rent 呢個字即係咩意思啊？ Rent means there is rental service。有 service 即係有咩嘢？有 service 即係有 production 咯。OK， now don't ask me why。OK， I do not fully understand why it counts as well. OK， doesn't make sense to me. But this is how GDP works。即係原來啦，買咗層樓，你只要層樓住緊，你已經有 GDP 㗎啦。 Okay, so next time your mom says, 喂衰仔，成日留喺屋企，乜都唔做 you tell her, no, 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 mom, you have not learned economics or you do not learn well enough. 阿媽，其實我留喺屋企咧 I already have GDP. By owning the house, I am generating the estimated rental value of a self-use flat by just owning the house and using the house. Now, again, don't tell her I teach you, okay? I do not want to receive complaints from your mom, okay? 留喺屋企，乜嘢都唔做，原來都有 GDP 嘅 ，OK 得唔得？嗱 ，you will see this in past paper question again，好嘛？好啦，嗱，咁呢個唔嘥時間啦。嗱 ，let's look at one example in your textbook and then we wrap up this video on the with the next page，OK，好嘛？我哋望下啦 ，which of the following would be in the calculation 咩 circulation 咧 ？calculation of Hong Kong's GDP for 2014 2014年啦，記住唔好睇錯啊 ，OK， 好嘛？嗱 ，first old age allowance paid by the government， 小心啲啦。Whenever you see the word allowance, we have a name for this. It's called transfer payment. 乜嘢叫 transfer payment 咧 ？Basically, you pay money to people without doing anything. 你諗下，其實邊啲人收到 old age allowance 啊？By being old， 係啊，老嘅就攞到㗎啦。Okay, it does not require any production in return. Okay， 所以啦，原來呢度係冇 although there is value 係咪？你話阿 Sir 有嚿錢喎 ，but there is no production。記住啦，逢親係呢啲咁 transfer payment 咧 ，no production，no production。OK， 得唔得 ？Therefore doesn't count in GDP。OK， unfortunate this one doesn't count。好啦，第二個啦 ，market value of a flat built in 2013 but sold in 2014。記住啦，係 built in 2013， 2013年起嘅。So the value added it should be counted in 2013 not 14。你阿 Sir 係咪成個嘢都唔計嗱 I would argue let's say the market value is 1 million if in that year the value added is only like 0.3 million then only that 0.3 million 即係咩意思啊？係咪成個 market value 都唔計咧？唔係 but only parts of the market value is counted. Only the value added part is counted. Okay, so unfortunately, this is also not correct. 因為唔係計晒啊，淨係計 value added 個 part。好嘛，好，第三個啦 ，the salary 嗱呢個啦，逢親見到 salary 咧，你就會好開心啦。Because salary, remember, is for labour service。幾時出糧啊？當你做嘢嘅時候咯 ，when there is service, there is production， 咪有 production 咯，係嘛 ？Therefore, C is the answer we want。唔係阿 Sir， 阿 Sir 你冷靜啲先。They are talking about second hand 喎，你阿 Sir 二手計咩？如果計咗唔係 double counting 咩 ？Boys, remember the price of the second hand handbag does not count， 係二手個價唔計。But now we are talking about the salary of the person working in a second hand handbag。OK， 好唔好啊？嗱，所以記住啊，二手個 price 唔計，但係賣二手嘅 salary，it is a retail service。OK， 好啦 ，finally rental income from a property in Canada 需啲乜嘢啊？記住啦 ，if this is Canada, then it does not happen in Hong Kong, not in Hong Kong. Therefore, it also does not count. OK， 得唔得？好啦，嗱 ，for this video, let's look at one more page and then we move on to the past paper of this chapter. OK， 好嘛？好啦，我哋望下邊啲計，邊啲唔計啦。OK，production by household for their own consumption。你阿 Sir 點解 production 唔計啊 own consumption. OK， 記住啦 ，when we talk about own consumption, there is no market value， 所以唔計啦。So basically, it's a $0。計嘅，不過計0蚊咧，咁即係唔計咯，係咪啊 ？Here, non-market activity or legal transaction, in theory, it counts, but in reality, since they are illegal, when it comes to illegal, there is no record。計唔到啊，我都唔知幾多錢。OK， 好嘛 ？Second-hand goods does not count because it is already counted once。已經計咗一次啦。OK， 已經計咗一次啦，再計就會 double counting 噶啦。It will be double counting。OK，middleman charge pay。OK，pay because this one production basically this one salary。OK，dividends 同埋另一個啦，唔止 dividends 啊 ，and interest from bonds 係咪 ？dividend from stock，interest from bonds。Both of them counts because 阿 Sir 你唔係話 stock 同 bond 唔計嘅咩 ？Yes, the price of stock and bond does not count, but dividend and interest because remember these two are the returns from stock and bond。阿 Sir return 啲乜嘢啊 ？These are the return from 嗱，你諗下買股票同買債券似咩啊 ？Kind of like a lending service， 似唔似借錢嘅服務啊 ？There is a service，OK？ 咁阿 Sir 乜嘢唔計啊 ？Capital gain does not count，OK？I buy a stock at $10, I sell at $100, I earn $90， 我賺咗90蚊喎。But remember, stock and bonds, the price does not count. No production, okay? Or I should say, no real production. Okay, 同樣啦 financial asset, the same. Commission, salary, right? And finally, transfer payment. Here, we just talk about, 我哋溫多次書啦 transfer payment, basically, money given to someone without any production. Okay, now therefore, transfer payment, no production, not going to count. Okay, 好嘛 and that should conclude our first video on teaching of a definition of GDP. Next video, let us then talk about the past paper questions in this part. Okay, see you very soon in the next video. See you then. Bye bye.